If you're looking to make a reservation, we're not available right now, and we'll be booked up for the foreseeable future because we are so posh. All right, so did you guys get a chance to walk them again yesterday?
Yes.
How'd it go?
Good. We actually didn't bump into any dogs, like walking past us.
Yeah.
Really, but across the street and like a lot of dogs in the yards.
I gotcha. And they did pretty good with it. Did you notice a difference with those couple adjustments?
$100%.
Yes, for sure.
They're more tuned in right now.
He was a little skittish, but
Yeah.
that's normal.
Okay, I gotcha.
But he did, I mean, he did well, I think.
Did you walk him?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And you made sure you're nice and loose on the leash and stuff?
Yep.
Perfect.
Definitely noticeable difference.
Okay.
There was like 1 or 2 times where there was dogs being walked like far
I gotcha.
somewhere.
But no super close contact or
A
anything?
lot of dogs that when we walked past their houses, though, did like either run right up to the fence,
Yeah.
or they had an invisible fence,
Uh-huh.
probably. I'm
Yeah,
guessing, 'cause it's better. And they looked
Yeah,
pretty
he
good.
did great.
Okay.
He was definitely like hyper focused on that. His hair was up and he was like
Yeah.
posturing, but he didn't.
He didn't make any moves or anything. Okay, I gotcha. And that's progress, obviously, so I'll take it. Okay, cool. Well, let's do this. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with just a really quick walk to get them tuned in here. Once we do that, we'll bring them back, and we're going to focus on the socialization stuff today.
Okay.
So if you want to get your leashes, I'll have you walk him. You can lead the way. You're just going to go straight down to the street and then make a right. No, I got it. Yeah.
And this is why my brain goes, so like ever in the future, because at the time when we got him, my brother had just had a baby.
Sure.
Our year-old. And I was like, I don't want, if I ever get him,
Sure.
obviously he's going to be around.
Yes.
The kids do not have to worry.
Yeah.
If the kid crawls up on his hand and he puts his hand in the bully, you know?
I understand the mentality. Same concept, right? Same concept, right? So like it's my job to make sure that almost never happens so that if once in a blue moon it does accidentally happen because I slip up because we're humans, right? It's not a big deal when it goes to happen. You know what I mean? It's the same mentality. We hear a lot of people when they get new puppies, they'll tell us every time I feed the dog, I'm petting the dog and putting my hand in the bowl and this and that so they get used to it so that, you know, kids or this or that, it's not a big deal. And again, I get the mentality, but it's counterintuitive because since you're doing it all the time, it's one of those things where the dog is constantly going to be on edge because you're fucking with them while they're eating all the time. And that's actually how you can create resource guarding issues then at that point, right? So, you know, same concept with, you know, Kevin obviously had his issues with people, right? And if we were to say, well, you know, I want to make sure if I'm out on a walk and a kid runs up to him and tries to pet him, he's not going to react. So I put him in that scenario all the time to get him used to it. That's going to keep him on edge and make him more likely to react because every time he sees a kid, he's like, this kid's going to run up to me. You know what I mean? Past that, what we're going to do here in a minute is we're just going to kind of let them loose in the room, let them socialize, stuff like that, just kind of see what we get, and we'll discuss some concepts as far as like how to kind of really bring them back together in the house and kind of feel confident that there's not going to be any sort of problems or anything. So a lot of times with this kind of stuff, it really is pretty uneventful most of the time, you know. The key really is we need to do this enough in a way exactly like we're doing where there's, again, no resources out, we're not interacting with the dogs, and we're in a place where we're able to supervise it successfully until we run into those one-off situations where there typically would be a problem, right? Because a lot of times you're not gonna catch it right away, you know what I mean? So you just gotta let them kind of do their thing, let them socialize, interact with each other. And I'm just waiting to see if for whatever reason they come over near you guys and get bunched up and one of them gets pissed off or something like that so that we could see what happens so we could address it. I think sometimes we'll do this like once or twice and then we'll look at it and be like, oh, they're fine, right? And then we'll kind of end it. But like, unfortunately, because they have had their issues with each other, you almost have to continue doing this like this in like short structured times until you have a problem so you could actually confirm that you're past it. All right, let's do this. We're gonna all kind of walk over this way, just kind of introduce a new area, see what happens. He's pumped. Paige, can you close that gate behind you? Looks good. good though. I mean, honestly, the positive here is both of them seem relatively comfortable. You know, I mean, they're sniffing around, checking things out. Even Kevin, for like as nervous as he was when he started, he's doing his thing. You know, he's cool. A lot of it, especially because you guys had a longer period of success and then all of this started happening. When it starts hitting that point where it seems like it's snapping out of nowhere, it's just the buildup of everything else, you know? And it's just the fact that he's just constantly on edge, you know? So any little thing could trigger him. And that's the whole point of everything we've gone over today and yesterday, is really just like taking a step back. Let's focus on the important things. Let's get to a place where we're not needing to micromanage, and let's put them in a position where we could decrease that stress so they could socialize better, you know? Remove a lot of the variables, essentially. And that's what we saw, obviously, with the walk, which is why yesterday and today Kevin was so phenomenal on the walk, is because we removed a lot of the stressors of the nagging, you know what I mean? We solved the problems we were having on the walk by communicating more clearly with him, right? Which brought his stress level down, which made him more tolerant to all these other things. Same deal in the house. We're not gonna micromanage as much with the little growl here, right? The kind of tenseness over here, this, that, so that, again, we could bring the overall stress level of the house down a little bit, so that if little scuffles happen, they're much less intense, you know? And these are all good signs, right? Again, they like each other. It's just there's outside factors that are contributing to these fights, and that's why we're stripping away everything, and we're going back to, like, for a little while, we need to just let them be buddies again, you know, and let them interact with each other without our variable that we're adding in of the toys and the food and the petting and the this and the that, so they could reestablish that relationship with each other, you know, because we know it's there, you know. Again, they're I don't want to say fine, because they're not, but like they're good right now, you know what I mean? They're able to, because we're not adding all those types in, be cool. And like I said, and they seem comfortable, and there doesn't seem like there's any grudginess or anything, so we need to just build on success with that for a little bit. And you very well may find, if you treat all their interactions together exactly like we're doing right now, you may find that you could go the next 3 weeks without having an incident, you know what I mean? Which is positive, right? I don't necessarily need to see the problem, you know what I mean? If I don't see it, I don't see it. Like I said, in our case with our dogs, we didn't see the problem again, you know what I mean? Yeah. In the case of some dogs who've developed the grudginess towards each other, that's when you kind of have to let them work out their issue. But right now, I'm not seeing an issue that needs worked out. It's the full on, like, something's there and I'm amped up and I'm barking at it and stuff, you know? Because, you know, once we corrected for it, he still kind of went over, he's looking, he's like, I don't really know what's going on over here. I'm a little concerned about it, woof, woof, you know? So you got to kind of play on the fine line with it, of it's the full on, like, kind of explosion of energy that we want to stop. And that also contributes big time to fights. You know, if they still feel like they need to be the ones that are super defensive and territorial of things going on outside of the apartment, that's them not having enough of kind of like leadership established with you guys, where they realize, like, you don't need to worry about this, we're in charge of these types of things, you know? Because once we have that baseline kind of control established over our dogs where they're not doing those types of things, we kind of cap their intensity level a little bit, so that any sort of issues that go on like underneath us, so like the inner household dog on dog relationship stuff, like the social hierarchy, all of that, it becomes much less intense, you know? This is good though. I mean, I think we're seeing, you know, overall from yesterday and today, I think we got a good plan here, at least moving forward with them, so. That's right. All right, so overall, like I said, everything that I'm kind of seeing right now, I think is a stem from just, you guys, I think as you've started to see issues, have just gotten too control-y over them, you know what I mean? Which has created too much stress, which has made those incidences obviously more intense, right? So things like the walking, right? The fact that there was inconsistencies between how you would walk them and how you would walk them. And in your case, you would micromanage a lot more, so you were kind of keeping him in a state of stress, but you didn't have quite as much reactivity, obviously. In your case, you weren't really correcting clear enough at all, because you were using the leash to hold back too much, which is where you were getting more reactivity. So obviously creating some consistency as far as how you're walking them, making sure that they're they're the ones that are maintaining position and being more consistent about where we're applying the correction to actually stop that reactivity. That seemed to work really, really well with the walking. I want to see you guys get some success with that, obviously. As far as the socialization with them, I think really the root of those problems has been all of the change in environment, and there just being too much inconsistency with everything, you know, and probably you guys trying to control a lot because of how much change there's been. So I really want to get back to right now, the next, you know, 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever, is just all about them, you know, all about them just in a consistent environment, getting really comfortable socializing with each other and addressing some of those outside variables like we talked about, like the reacting outside at things and stuff. Like, I want to see all of that go away at this point, right? So it's going to be very, very, very little command related stuff and much more just allowing them to establish their relationship with each other and correcting for the outside things, you know? And I think you got to just kind of build on some success with that. And the positive is, again, they're not very grudgy towards each other right now, right? And they were buddies before, right? So they could do it again, you know? So I think if you do those things, I think you should be good to go. No, I'm about to tell you what the question is.
Scary.
There's 4 different beverages, and you had to figure out which one of them was made by Pepsi and which one's made by Coke.
Oh, that's tough.
Right? Here are the beverages. You ready? Gatorade, Powerade, Gold Bond tea, or what is it?
Gold Bond tea.
Not Gold Bond.
That book powder.
You know which one I'm talking about, though, right? The
I think it's gold leaf.
Gold Leaf tea or something like that.
All right.
And Topo Chico Seltzer.
Bro, that is tough. I'm out.
You're out?
I'm out.
I felt confident in it. Does anybody know?
Is it 50-50?
Powerade's Pepsi. Gatorade is Coke. Is it just it's just Pepsi, Coca-Cola?
Yes.
Gatorade is Coca-Cola. I don't even know what the seltzer is. Like, I don't think I've ever seen
Topo
that
Chico is
before.
delicious. You should try it. It's really
I'm out,
good.
dude. I'm out.
What was the other
I
one?
was off
Oh,
in
the
the
tea.
beginning.
Yeah.
The tea is Coca-Cola. And the other one's gotta be Pepsi.
You got the last 2 mixed up. Is that Callie or Jerry?
There is.
Callie. Hi, Callie.
She's doing really well.
Wow. I'm impressed.
She did another board and train somewhere else, and she said she was very sad when she picked her up.
Callie was really sad. The owner and Callie.
And she's like, she just kept being like, she's just so happy. She loves it here.
You realize, like, you know, we've talked about this before, obviously, but owners would prefer for their dog, most of the time, unless there's like really major issues, owners would prefer for their dog to just like be happy and like have a good relationship and stuff than for everything to be so freaking
That's
militant.
what people want.
Yes.
But the World Dog Trainer doesn't want their dogs to be militant.
Yeah. You
It's
know.
not realistic.
You know, there are certain things that, you know, like there's some dogs that come in where it's unrealistic to focus on just that, obviously, but the majority of the dogs that come here, like, that's my priority with them, you know? Get that reliability, obviously, but like, make sure, because here's the thing, like, let's say we focus initially on the dog just like having a really good time, right, and enjoying the process and stuff. I could always be more firm on the dog later on if I need to, if there's problems, you know what I mean? But it's very difficult to take steps back and be softer on the dog once you've kind of already overdone it a little bit. So.
People love when their dogs are happy to come back here. Mm-hmm. Just my goal with everything.
Yep, and it's a good focus, and especially, I mean, like, here's the thing, right, like, I've had this conversation with like other trainers and stuff, like, like, I don't think we'll ever hit a point where, you know, e-collars are banned and this and that, right? But like, I want to know that if for whatever reason something like that were to happen, that it's not going to put us out of business. We know how to train these dogs without needing to rely solely on that tool. Where how many trainers out there do you see that are so contingent on that tool? Without it, it's like, what, you know, like they wouldn't know what to do. So
Sad for their dogs in their program.
yeah. Don't need one. Thank you. Good. Come.
That's a cute dog.
Thank you. Yeah, so the first step is going to be getting him obviously in the crate so that we could start blocking that pattern of him rehearsing it in the first place, obviously. From there, a lot of times we start kind of setting up situations like throughout the day, like when you are present, to kind of simulate the types of things that might, you know, get him to a place where he's thinking like he has to get into this kind of stuff. In addition to that, obviously, the problem is if he realizes he can get out of the current crate that you have, you may need to invest in a little bit better of a crate as well. Because again, like self-reinforcing behaviors, if he knows he's able to get out of that crate for whatever reason, he's going to continue trying to do so, you know. So, you know, like I said, it's initially, it's getting the dog to a place where he can manage them so that when we're not present, we can at least guarantee that he's not going to need any more surgeries and stuff and be ingesting things. From there, it's kind of periodically setting up the scenarios at home when you are home so you can start to actually chip away at these issues. So that's kind of how we start to work through a lot of this kind of stuff.
That appointment coming up in the middle of April, so that'll be a good test, because that was the main push for this, because we had to, do you know what door jamming is?
Door jamming?
Yeah.
I'm sure I do, but I don't know why.
So you pull the leash through the door.
Okay.
So his head is in the corner of the door.
Okay.
And then they sedate him in the butt because he can't fight or whatever, so he's scratching or whatever. And then they have to muzzle him after they sedate him because he still tries to bite, but he can't fight the sedation as much.
Yeah.
Just to trim his nails, just to give him an injection. So we're gonna go just muzzle, and he can't do trans, he can't take any of it. We tried probably a dozen combinations of those two medications.
Yeah.
He will not go down.
Yeah.
He fights it, you can't get a muzzle on him, won't take treats, you can't even get near him because he will lunge at you.
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
Yeah.
So obviously he really related stuff is a lot of the triggers, putting things on him, doing his paws, collars. things
Yeah,
like
so
that.
collars, leashes, like his e-collar and his leash, absolutely no issues because we're consistent with it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we should just start being consistent with his regular collar. The problem is we don't need to take it on and off.
Yeah, that's not necessarily going to be the solution for it correctly. I think a lot of it comes down to knowing that he has those issues. We just have to have a very clear, definitive way. Like, when we do need to do this, this is how we do it.
Right.
Like you were saying, creature, habit, structure, right? The more structured routine we can have for certain things, the more successful, you know, we can be with it, right? So like, I need to ensure, let's say hypothetically, for whatever reason, I need to put it on. I need to put his regular collar on. I need to do this, I need to do that, right? I need to be able to tell myself that I can ensure this will work successfully, right? And if he's going to have a problem with it, I'm going to 100% of the time be in a position to be able to work through that problem so I can come out successful at the end.
Yeah.
Right? Where I see a lot of people go wrong with dogs like this is Because let's throw a number out, hypothetical number, 70% of the time he's okay with it, and 30% of the time he's not okay with it. What winds up happening is we go into it with the mentality it's always going to be the 70% of the time he's going to be fine with it. Then when he doesn't like it for whatever reason and starts getting shitty with us, we're not prepared to handle that scenario safely. Okay, so there's two sides of things I want to address today, and we'll kind of move pretty quickly through both of them because we don't have a ton of time today, but half of it is going to be just the general communication, so just observing kind of your interactions with him and stuff. You're letting a lot of things slide right now. You're relying on your not a lot, right? Which, listen, it's fine. You're communicating it in the correct spots.
Right.
The problem is most of the times that you're giving that should just be a correction so that you can reduce the amount of times overall you need to nag him. Right. So that's going to be one side of the equation that we're going to kind of look at and address. The other side of the equation is actually making sure we have a clear and safe way to start continuing to progress through these handling.
Yeah.
And this is very infrequently is this a correction-based issue, you know? And honestly, I'm also not really that big of a fan of like using like obedience commands for it and stuff because he needs to learn to tolerate simply this is not that traumatic, nothing bad is happening to you, you know what I mean?
So it's more just like you're just staying committed to it.
That's it, yeah. You know, you kind of, I call it like non-reinforcement.
But unless if he's like fighting and not letting go sort of thing, like.
Yeah, I mean, if he was really intense about committing to it, and if I needed to give a correction, that's fine. But almost all of the time, once you remove the reinforcement behind why he's doing the thing, which is obviously he's trying to get me to stop, a lot of times they get less and less committed with it over time, right? Aggression, in particular, right? We look at sometimes with dogs as this like on-off switch, right? So we look at it as something where it's like they're either acting aggressively or they're not acting aggressively, and that there's something you're going to do that's just going to turn it off, and that's unrealistic, right? Aggression, right, is kind of a spectrum with dogs. You know what I mean? It can be very, very intense, or it could be, you know, something so minor as, and I typically wouldn't call this aggression, obviously, but a dog will bark when you try and get you to stop things.
Right.
You know what I mean? And what I want to do is not turn that switch off. I want to decrease the intensity of it. So I want to move it lower and lower on the spectrum, right? So that we're not telling them you can't let us know when you're uncomfortable with something. And again, it's unrealistic, right? But you don't have to take it to this like level 13 intensity right off the bat.
Right. This is just a part of daily life.
Exactly. Yeah. In there, before we started the session, when you were trying to get them to do the down, you were really quick on your corrections, right? Now, if he's blowing you off, I want you to be quick with it, obviously. But when we give a command, notice how long I waited for him to really commit and settle into that position when I gave him that down command there. I would say when you give a command, let it breathe for a minute. 9 out of 10 times, our dog is not blowing us off. They're just figuring out what it is that we're going to do. And the problem is if we're always too quick to correct, like we're like down, no down, no down, no down, right? We almost kind of block some of that ability for them to process information on their own, you know? So let your commands breathe for a minute in between those corrections and give them an opportunity to do it. And at this point, don't give physical help to try to get him into position. If he doesn't do it, just give him a minute, then just give another correction for it so he kind of works. You know what I mean? So that's one thing. So as far as the couple other things you were bringing up here, the healing, right? We have never enforced that he has to stay on the left-hand side. Right? My philosophies on healing are much looser than a lot of other trainers' philosophies on healing because one, there's no need for them to be perfect right here, super strict all the time. Like, why does it matter if it goes to the right side? You know what I mean? And then two, long term, it's easier to enforce. If we can take our criteria and we can take it from here to here and loosen that parameter up just a little bit, but then be really strict about that looser parameter that we maintain, right? It's going to be much easier for him to maintain, and he's going to be more comfortable.
Yeah.
And especially when you get into, not that he had tons and tons of like reactivity issues, obviously out on the walk, but when you're having reactivity issues with dogs on the walk, the tighter of a criteria you hold, the more of like a mental restraint it puts on the dog, which can actually create more stress and make their reactivity more intense, right? If we're saying, I know you're uncomfortable about this thing over here, but you gotta stay right here and you can't move out of this exact position, that creates stress, right? So when I'm walking, let's say I have a dog reactive dog or a car reactive dog, and we're walking down the street, right? He starts reacting to a car over there, I give him a big correction for that car reactivity, and he's like, you know what? I just want to stay away from what's going on over there. And then he kind of veers off to the right side, and then I correct him for that because he doesn't stay on the left. It's like, well, he's trying to do the right thing. Like, why, you know what I mean? Like, why would I fight that fight with him?
I've never corrected him for it.
Yeah.
biggest thing, handling related stuff. For the next, let's say hypothetically month, we'll just put that amount of time on it. Anytime you go to put something on him that you think there's even a possibility he could have an issue with, put the muzzle on real quick first, then do it, then take it off, right? And that'll help you also start, you got to build some trust in getting that muzzle on as well.
Should we just start making drills out of it? Like, hey, we have an app, 10 minutes or whatever, let's pop the muzzle.
Hell yeah, and make it fun. Use some treats and stuff.
Anytime the muzzle's on, it's good stuff. Cheese and chicken and all that stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Work drills like that, get them used to those types of things, and that's how you're going to start getting past that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I think it looks pretty good. So work those things for a couple weeks. Give me an update, shoot me a text or something in a couple weeks. Let me know how things are going, obviously. So it sounds like, so obviously we're going to continue progressing with the socialization related stuff with him, but a lot of this, it sounds like, is some inconsistencies with the distractions on the walk of the parks.
Better at home.
Yes.
Better at home. I just told them no and tapped the car once, or two shepherds walking by.
That's all I got.
Yep.
I think the one dog might have went by that he just doesn't like. And we did go to Pack Walk 2 Saturdays ago. He was phenomenal. He sat in his down while people were walking by in the parking lot beforehand. He never stays in his down like that.
Cool. Sweet, I'll take it.
For the one dog.
Yeah.
One dog, he just does his little Frenchie. He just hates that dog, and as soon as he sees it, he goes nuts.
Okay, well, let's do this. Since the weather is not awful out today, I would like to tackle some of the walking stuff here. I think we should take him around the corner. Have you been to Edgewater with him ever?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go there after with his brother.
How convenient.
Doing great.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not that we've done that many sessions here, but you've made quite a bit of progress with him in a short time, that's for sure.
Just those few changes, I think.
Couple little adjustments. Like we talked about, he knew this stuff. The problem was you just needed to be able to communicate a little bit more clearly with him. I was just telling her, that dog I worked with like last summer, actually Matt and I did, when Matt first started, we both did that dog together, and that dog was so freaking reactive. They couldn't bring the dog here. That was like their big goal, is they live pretty close here, and they're like, we want to just be able to walk our dog through Edgewater. Well, yeah, I mean, the dog wasn't aggressive. The dog was just a hot mess, just super anxious, super reactive and stuff. And that's cool. You know, they're going for their walks. Look at that. Looks good. Good job, buddy. Okay, come here. Come here. I know. He's a psycho. Look at him. You're crazy.
Anxiety thing.
You know, you could read into all day long why they're doing some of these things. You know, for whatever reason, he's telling you, I don't like this skateboard. Is he doing it because he's scared of it? Is he doing it because he's anxious about it?
In the water. Like,
who
there's
knows?
A log in the
Yeah.
water. He'll go berserk like
Yeah,
that.
it literally could be anything, you know? So I don't read too much into that. I just make sure that I set the boundary of it's not something that I want you to do, you know? Outside of the resource guarding behaviors that you're seeing and some of that like territorial possessiveness, what sorts of other things, like what's his behavior like in the house?
I mean, we live in an apartment, so it was not the ideal situation with his breed.
Sure.
But we're stuck in this situation. He's pretty well, like, routined. He has his routine inside. I am currently living by myself. My fiance is away for work training.
Sure.
So it's kind of been a change of routine for us.
Yeah,
but,
I gotcha.
He's crate trained. He sleeps in his crate at night.
He's good in the crate?
Yeah, he's good in the crate. He's fine. He doesn't have like moments where he's like freaking out. But if we're at a different place and I put him in the same crate, bring his same blankets, it's like a different story.
Yeah.
And we struggle getting him to go into his crate. At home, it's like you say kennel,
Yeah.
and he goes right in. And we have a dog walker that comes twice a week, and they have their routine and everything's been fine. with
No
them.
problems with them?
No.
Cool.
So,
Okay. Does he have any sort of like negative behavioral things he does in the house? Does he bark out the window a lot, get into things, stuff like that?
no, I would say like the only thing is if he wants attention and like you're not giving it to him, like he wants to play or you're not meeting his needs or something, he like will grab shoes and play chase away from you. But no, he doesn't chew, he doesn't destroy things, he doesn't pee or like poop in the house, that was never an issue.
Yeah.
He doesn't like sit out the window and bark at dogs.
Good.
If there's like loud noises inside, he'll bark, but he'll go to the door and like bark down.
Yeah.
That's about it.
So a lot of times when I see situations like this, where the dog is like, typically speaking, pretty good in the home, you take them outside anywhere else, they're kind of shut down a little bit more or less and get really nervous about stuff. The problem is he's comfortable in the house, right? He has his routines in the house, and as long as nothing diverts from those routines, he's cool, right? Any sort of change to that, anything that stresses him out, he has no idea how to cope with that. And in the home, because he's so comfortable and because he's so confident in the home, he's more apt to act on those fears in a negative manner, right? Outside of the home, he shuts down. He's like, I don't know what to make of this situation. I don't know how to handle myself in this situation, right? And so he doesn't have that confidence behind those fears, but it's coming from the same place in either. It's coming from the same place in either way, right? So in a case like this, camera, right? Why don't you grab his leash real quick there, just in case. Paige suddenly starts scaring him, you know? But now that
will happen. So like he starts to gain, okay, like.
He's gained, that's what I was just gonna say, he's gained some confidence in the context of this scenario because we let him kind of explore and we let him do his own thing and stuff. And now suddenly it's like, oh, well now, I've been scared of this the whole time, but now I'm a little bit more confident, so I'm gonna react. So it's funny his timing behind doing that, because that's exactly what I was just describing. You know what I mean? So the thing is, how we start to work through these situations is we gain leadership and control over the dog. So when we come into these new scenarios, instead of going in and just being like, here you go, bud, decide if you're okay or not with this kind of stuff, we could go in and we could communicate with him, hey, I know you're scared of this place, but you gotta come in here, right? I know that you're concerned about what she's doing over there, but I need you to ignore her and focus on this right now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what happens is it starts to desensitize him to those things because we're splitting his brain and essentially taking like 50% of it and focusing it on a task. So he only has half of it left to worry about what's going on over there, right? And it gains some leadership capital for us where he starts knowing when I'm scared, I look to mom for that guidance. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how all this stuff starts to come together. And then obviously as we progress further along, you know, we start being in a position to start disciplining for some of these behaviors and stuff like that. This is I want you really shifting that mentality of I'm getting you under control right now. You kind of have, you really have to have that kind of almost like hard ass mentality initially about some of this, just until you start to get it under control so that we could enjoy him more later on. You know what I mean? Because I mean, you could just tell he's really pushing you around right now. I could, you know, it was interesting just the contrast between when I was working him and when you were, you know? So what I'm gonna do here, I'll have you hang out here. I'm gonna walk him up and down the parking lot a couple times. And what I'm gonna do is kind of like what we were doing inside, where when he gets distracted, I'm gonna do a turn with a leash pop to get his attention back on me. So kind of like that. No. I just wanna try to shift a little bit more of this attention onto me. You see him starting to be able to go like further and further without losing his attention. And again, this isn't going to totally fix it. As we progress along, we'll be able to proof this better, but just trying to get a little bit more control. And I want to see like that, see how he turned with me on that one. Just more handler awareness. Good job, buddy. Okay. Sit. Good job. Not too shabby. Oh yeah, for sure. We've worked with harder dogs than him. I mean, listen, like he's a little bit of a pain, you know, you can tell. But the problem is, and here's the thing, right? It's coming from a place of fear, right?
Yeah, and that's 100%.
The problem is, in those fearful states, he's just really learned that he can make himself more confident by pushing you around.
Yeah.
And that's really where the root of the problems are coming from. And that's why he's starting to display some of these more like dangerous behaviors towards you guys, you know? It's just because if he thinks that when he gets scared, right, of outside things, he could push you around to give himself confidence. When he gets scared of things that you're doing, because he already knows that he can control you guys, he's going to equally let you guys know that he doesn't like those things as well, where those things should be flipped, right? It's my job to tell you when I don't like what you're doing. Vice versa. We were just talking about that earlier. That guy drives me bonkers. Lost my train of thought. But yeah, so it should be the other way around. We should be the one telling our dog when we don't like what they're doing. They shouldn't be telling us when they don't like what we're doing. You know what I mean? And that's why, like I said, it sounds harsh or mean or whatever, but like you have to have that kind of like I'm in charge now mentality initially, you know, just to reshift that relationship and start to recalibrate it a little bit, you know? So, what you think, buddy? Do you have any questions on any of that? I mean, that's really going to be the big things you're working on right now. So you're healing, obviously, stability in your position. So doing those long sits, like what we're doing right now. Notice he hasn't gotten up at all this time, right? Which is really good. So I want to see you hit that point where when he's getting up, no, you're giving that correction. You're getting him back into that position. So he's realizing, no, sit. That you're in control of those things, you know, and there's not emotion attached to it or anything. It's simply like, nope, that's wrong. You're getting a correction for it. You need to stay there, you know.